The New Girl, Eddie Munson x female listener. Trigger warning, self-harm, blood, drug use, depression, mentions of bullying. Your family just moved in Hawkins, Indiana. You're 18 and this is your senior year. You were your old town's freak and the fact that you were a girl made it even worse. You were considered the town's freak because you were mainly listening to metal and rock and roll, but also because you really loved roleplay games. One day, you saw this magazine about Dungeons and Dragons and you really enjoyed the game's concept. You knew pretty much everything about this game, but you had no one to play it with. This year means new resolutions, and you decided to be the most quoting marks normal that you could be. It means you have to say goodbye to the ripped jeans, but also goodbye to the band t-shirts. And you even consider joining the cheerleaders, even though you hate what they do. You won't be able to go through another year of bullying all alone. Your high school years were really hard on you. You went into depression and school phobia and started having self-harming habits. This year has to be different. You're even gonna hide your tattoos and you dyed your hair back in your hair color, which is far different from their previous color, which was scarlet red. This is your first day at Hawkins High. You dressed in a plain white long-sleeve t-shirt and a blue jean, and you only did your makeup with foundation and mascara. You rush downstairs, take your bag, a pancake, and rush through the door while screaming, "See you tonight!" to your parents. You hear your mom wishing you a good day before sitting on the driver's seat of your car. You drive to school even though you are early and you hope you can find a calm spot in order to hide and smoke your cigarette before heading to class. You park your car on the parking, get out and see a little path leading to the forest. You take it and arrive at a picnic table. You sit, thinking it's a very calm spot for your little pre-first day cigarette. You sit down, take your cigarette out and start smoking when you hear leaves crunching behind you. You jump off the bench to see a teenager or a young adult you don't know with brown curly hair, brown eyes, and his clothes are really similar to your former clothes. He raises his hands in surrender to show you he means no harm before speaking. "I never saw you around." "I'm new in town," you answer. The boy looks at you with his big brown eyes. You can't help but stare at him, but also admire him for being confident enough to wear the clothes he wants. You remember that once you were like him, but that led you to be in such a dark place that you think it doesn't worth it. "Then welcome, perfect stranger, I'm Eddie Munson." You chuckle before answering with your name and your last name. "Nice to meet you. I actually can't believe you are talking to me. Most people would have run away." "Why is that?" you ask. "Because I'm the town's freak." He makes invisible quoting marks with his hands. "Mean and scary." "You don't seem mean and scary to me." "Well, thank you, but you shouldn't hang out with me at school. Not that I don't like you. No, you are pretty and I enjoy talking to you, but..." You cut Eddie's rambling. "I can manage hanging out with the outcasts. I actually was an outcast in my old town." "You don't seem an outcast to me. You seem the most normal person I've ever seen. And it's not an insult at all, I promise." Eddie is all flustered and keeps rambling. My real style is similar to yours, to be honest. I just changed it because I couldn't take being the freak anymore. But I admire you. I admire you for not caring about what others think." And you take a deep breath. "I want to learn. That's why, if you accept it, of course, I'm gonna hang out with you at school." While you were talking, Eddie took a black lunchbox out and started rolling a joint. "I'd be honored to hang out with you, and I'll help you. I'll help you to see how unimportant people's opinion is. All that matters is that you feel yourself. Do you even feel yourself in those?" You look at the ground, ashamed, before answering. "Not really." "You don't have to feel ashamed. I promise to help you be yourself." Eddie lights up his joint. You look at the joint tempted before Eddie asks you, "Wanna share it with me?" You think about it, and if you're gonna walk into the hall of your new high school with him, you'll need courage. Plus, you haven't had one in 2 days now, and the withdrawal is getting really strong, so you nod. "Before I share it with you, I need you to say it out loud, please." "Yes, I want to share it with you," you answer. Eddie hands you the joint, and you take a few hits before handing it back to him. You look at your watch before cursing. "Shit, Eddie, we're going to be late." Eddie shrugs, but then he sees the panic in your eyes and takes his stuff before leading you to the high school. When you both enter the halls, everyone looks at you. You start fidgeting with your fingers, really anxious for this first day, when Eddie says, "You have nothing to be afraid of. If anyone is rude to you, come to me and I'll flip them off. You chuckle slightly before answering. Thank you, Eddie. Gosh, you find this boy really sweet but also insanely attractive. But of course, you keep your thoughts to yourself. Eddie leads you to the secretary office and waits for you outside while you go pick up your timetable as well as your locker number and code. When you head out, you look surprised that Eddie is still here. What are you still doing here? You're gonna be late. I wasn't going to let you get lost in the maze that is Hawkins High. Plus, I don't care about being late. Thank you. I'm going to my locker and then to my first class. Eddie snatches your timetable from your hands and looks at you grinning. We are together almost all morning. He seems very excited at the idea of spending the morning with you, and deep down, you are too. You are also relieved. Sounds amazing, you answer. After your last class of the morning that you had to spend without Eddie, you're going to the cafeteria. You enter and go grab food. Once you have your tray, you look around for somewhere to sit when one of the basketball players, you think his name is Jason, goes to you and tells you, "Wanna sit with us, new girl?" You look at him in disbelief because of what he just called you, but you're kind of scared of him. You knew people like that at your old school. One of them used to hit you every single day. You start trembling a bit. Eddie is sitting at his table with his friends from Hellfire. Gareth, Jeff, Dustin, and Mike all look at the scene happening a few meters away, which is your interaction with Jason, when Gareth says, "Look at the new girl, already being seduced by the king of Hawkins High." At those few words, Eddie raises his head from his plate and look at the exchange between you and Jason. He can sense that something is off, but before he can say anything, Dustin speaks up. "Why does she look like so uncomfortable?" Eddie gets up on the table and screams your name. "You can come sit here if you want." The whole cafeteria look at you, and then Eddie in disbelief, and Jason look at you with a glare, saying, "Don't you dare sit with him." Before you could say anything, Jason turns to Eddie and says, "Want something, freak?" The nickname makes you wince, and you get out of the cafeteria, running with teary eyes. You run until you reach the picnic table you were sat on this morning. Meanwhile, Eddie makes a face at Jason before jumping from the table and going to look for you. After 10 minutes of searching the whole high school, Eddie comes to the conclusion that you are at the picnic table. He goes there and sees you with a bloody razor blade in your hand, crying. He delicately sits next to you and takes the blade from your hands. He doesn't say anything because, to be honest, he doesn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," you manage to say between sobs. "Don't be. I'm the one who is sorry. I should have been waiting for you at your class." "What happened with Jason? Did he say something?" You start crying even more at the mention of what happened in the cafeteria. Eddie starts rubbing your back before he remembers the bloody blade. He looks at your bloody wrists and takes one in his hand. He takes his bandana and starts wiping off the blood while you keep crying. "I'm sorry if it hurts, sweetheart, but I have to clean all that blood." You wince when the fabric of the bandana touches your wrist, but you don't back up. You're ashamed that he saw you like this, though. After Eddie finished wiping the blood from your left wrist, he wipes the blood from your right wrist. He keeps rubbing your back while you sob before asking, "Do you want to talk about what happened in there?" You take a shaky breath before saying, "I've known someone like Jason back in my former high school, and he..." You start crying again. "He hurt me almost every single day." "I'm sorry to hear that. Jason is a dick, but he'd never hurt you like that. And even if he tried, I wouldn't let him." You look at Eddie, still sobbing, with your teary eyes, and you mutter a shaky, "Thank you." Then Eddie looks back at your wrist and hesitates before asking, "Do you hurt yourself often?" You bury your face in your hands, ashamed, and keep sobbing. Eddie gets up from the bench and kneels before you, taking your hands away from your face. He lifts your chin up so you can look at him before saying, "You don't have to answer, but I want you to know that you can tell me anything. I'd never judge you or tell anyone what you tell me." "I do," you end up answering. Eddie looks at you with sudden eyes before searching for a pen and a paper through his bag. He writes down his address and phone number and hands it to you. "The next time you want to do that, call me or come see me. I'll try taking your mind off of it. And if you can't help but do it, I'll at least clean your cuts." You take the paper after thanking him. "Do you want me to bring you back home?" You nod. You and Eddie go back to your car. Once you've unlocked the car, Eddie opens the passenger door for you. "What are you doing?" you say. "Driving you home." Eddie answers. But what about your car? Don't worry for me. I won't let you drive when you're all shaken up. Please, let me do that for you. You nod and climb on the passenger seat. Eddie closes your door before climbing on the driver's seat. You give him the direction to your home. The ride is silent, but it's a comfortable silence. Once you arrive, Eddie opens the passenger door for you before leading you to your door. You unlock your door when Eddie says, "See ya tomorrow. Can you stay, please?" You ask. Eddie looks at you before saying, "Of course I can. I have nothing better to do anyway. I can stay until your parents come back." "Thank you so much," you say with a weak smile. You lead Eddie to the couch and instruct him to sit down. "I know you've been wanting to ask me something all the way home. Please go ahead, ask me. Whatever it is, I'm prepared. Why do you hurt yourself?" You take a shaky breath before answering. "Because the pain I feel inside of me is eating me alive. When I cut myself, my focus is on another kind of pain, one that hurt less than the pain inside of me." Eddie takes your hand. "I'm sorry. I wish I could take away some of your pain." After this conversation, Eddie cheered you up. He made some jokes to make you laugh. You listened to Iron Maiden together, and when it was time for him to leave, you kissed him on the cheek, and Eddie was all flustered. The next days, you spent a lot of time together, and Eddie was always trying to put a smile on your face. He was doing everything in his power to make you forget the demons from your past, and it worked. Every time you were with him, you were laughing and smiling. Thanksgiving holidays were approaching, which meant you will be all by yourself for a week. But you decided that you won't tell Eddie. He has to enjoy Thanksgiving holidays with his family. He needs to take time for himself. You can't ask him to spend his entire holiday with you, even though you'd really like that. You can't be selfish. He's done so much for you in the past weeks. This is the last day before the holidays, and you decided to go to school with your style. You put on a black Metallica t-shirt with a black ripped jean, Doc Martens, and let your tattoos show. You didn't tell Eddie that you would come to school like that. When you entered the hall, everyone was whispering. You went to class and sat at the last row, next to Eddie's usual place. Eddie was late, as usual. When he entered the class, he saw everyone whispering but paid no further attention, until his eyes spotted you. When he looked at you, his jaw dropped. He didn't think you'd be ready yet. He went to sit next to you and saw you fidgeting and your knee bounced. You two had gotten really close in the past weeks, so he put his hand on your knee and looked at you. A look meaning, "I'm here for you." The class go by and you keep fidgeting, but Eddie keeps his hand on your knee until the teacher notices. "Can I help you, Mr. Munson?" she says. "I'm sorry, miss. I wasn't feeling well and Eddie was showing me emotional support," you answer. "The freak helped the freak," says a cheerleader. Chrissy turns to you with an apologetic smile. "Mrs. Smith, I didn't ask for a comment." "Mr. Munson, just remove your hand from her knee." Eddie looks at you before doing so. You nod, making him understand that it's okay. Deep down, it isn't, and you know that you aren't going to your next class. When the bell rings, you don't even wait for Eddie and run to the bathroom. You lock yourself until the bell rings to indicate that the next class is starting. Eddie enters the next class. He scans the room but doesn't see you. He doesn't care about what the teacher will say. He just gets out of the room, ignoring the teacher who was ordering him to come back to class. He knew where you were, but he also knew that you were hurting yourself. He knows how hard it had been for you, and also knows you weren't ready to handle everything that was coming with assuming your style. Your mental health was still very fragile, even though Eddie had helped you a lot. He had to find you. You needed him now more than ever. You were sat at the picnic table, looking blankly at your bloody wrist when Eddie found you. He sat next to you, and you were so afraid that you disappointed him that you decided to speak first, looking at your shoes. "I'm sorry, Eddie. I couldn't help it." Eddie looks at you with a saddened but understanding look. "I'm not mad. I promise. Let me fix this." Eddie goes through his bag and takes out some gauze and a bottle of antiseptic. He always has it in his bag since the first time he saw you hurt yourself, just in case. He didn't have to use it in a while, but he knew that you would probably relapse one day, and Eddie was glad he didn't take it out of his bag. Eddie put some antiseptic on the gauze and started cleaning your wounds. He then looked at you in the eyes before saying, "I really like your style." Eddie is grinning. Even though he shouldn't be flirty, he can't help. "You're just so beautiful. even more when you're yourself. Eddie doesn't care about your scars, and even if it saddened him, the fact that you happened to hurt yourself wasn't something that made him run away. Eddie fell for you in those few weeks you spent together. Thank you for cleaning this up, and for the compliment. You blush at each special attention. You're not so bad yourself, Munson, you added. Eddie got closer to you and took your hand in his. I have something to tell you, and I know that now might not be the best timing, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. I love you, Eddie, you blurt out without thinking. When you realize what you just say, you put your left hand on your mouth and take your hand away from Eddie's, ready to leave. Eddie grabs you by the wrist and kisses you passionately before saying, I was going to say that I love you more than I should love a friend. And please, don't interrupt me. Let me finish. I really enjoy every moment with you, and I'm proud of you for coming to school like that. I'm proud of you for not self-harming for weeks. Yes, you've relapsed today, but relapse is part of recovery. And please, believe me when I say that you can tell me when you've done it. I'd rather be there for you, help you clean it up, and help taking away your guilt, than not knowing what you're going through. You've come such a long way, and I'm so proud of you. I love you, and nothing can change that. You have tears in your eyes. What Eddie said is so beautiful. You don't even know what to answer to that. No one has never been this kind to you before, and it's overwhelming. So instead of saying anything, you hug him and don't let go. It is Thanksgiving today. Your parents left in order to spend Thanksgiving with your grandparents as well as your aunts and uncles that you don't particularly appreciate. That's why you decided to stay home. You have been trying out outfits all morning long to find the perfect outfit, and now you found it. You're gonna wear a black leather dress, tights, and heeled boots. You put on some black eyeliner, mascara, and red lipstick. You've just finished putting your hair in a tight bun when you hear Eddie's van pulling up in your backyard. You rush to the door, taking your keys and bag, and you run in Eddie's arms and hug him tight. Your legs are around his waist. Eddie chuckles and kisses you before saying, ready to spend Thanksgiving with me and my uncle? You seem a bit stressed, so Eddie looks at you in the eyes before saying, Wayne is gonna love you. I'm sure of that. You spend the ride hand in hand, listening to your favorite song, Rainbow in the Dark by Gio. Eddie, you say, breaking the silence. He answers. You are my rainbow in the dark. Eddie smiles and squeezes your hand. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Eddie. And as Eddie predicted, Wayne loves you, and you spend the best Thanksgiving you've ever spent, surrounded by people you feel safe around, not thinking once about hurting yourself. Eddie is really your rainbow in the dark. If you or anyone you know deal with depression or suicidal thoughts or self-harm, please reach out for help.